be at that day from one end of the earth even unto the other end of the earth. They shall not be lamented, neither gathered nor buried. They shall be as dung upon the ground. And I believe the slain of the Lord is his people, Israel and the Jerusalem, that was destroyed by Babylon. So now, Jeremiah prophets again, telling them to repent, and then the people was mad at him. Basically, they was mad at him and they locked him up. They wanted to kill him, but they didn't kill him. They was wanting to kill him, but his hand was in Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, who's with Jeremiah, and they should not give him into the hand of the people to put him to death. So he prophesied again, telling them they're going to be destroyed, but they wouldn't listen, and they wanted to kill him. So then Jehoiakim is the king, and Jeremiah's telling him to submit to him. And then there's just give in because they're going to take it. And then the other prophets was telling them, no, just rebel against him. You'll be okay. You can make it. God's with you. But Jeremiah's telling them, no, just give in to him because you're not going to make it. And he says, but the nations that bring their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon and serve him, those will I let remain still in their own land, saith the Lord, and they shall till it and dwell therein. So, basically, then again, Zedekiah is the king, and Hananiah the prophet was telling him, join Egypt. You can rebel against them. And then Jeremiah was telling him, no, go with them, stay with Babylon, and let them do their thing, just stay still. And he wouldn't listen. And then they killed his children and pricked his eyes out and killed him. And then Hananiah the false prophet died. So now Jeremiah writes letters to the Jews that are in captivity, telling them to build houses and grow and multiply and take you wives and have kids, because God's going to visit you again. He'll turn you away from captivity. Encouragement. And then again it says, for lo, the days have come, saith the Lord, that I'll bring again the captivity of my people Israel and Judah, saith the Lord, and will cause them to return to the land that I gave their fathers, and they shall possess it. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Again, he talks about them being restored, and then the time of Jacob's trouble. That's something that hasn't happened yet, but it will happen. But they will have their inheritance in the end. In the end, it says, you shall be my people, and I'll be your God. Now, he says, For the Lord hath redeemed Jacob and ransomed him from the hand of him that was stronger than he. Again, it's talking about God being with Israel. Then there's a new covenant. He'll put his law in our inward parts and write it in our hearts. And he'll be our God, and we will be his people. So that's going to be futuristic. And that's going to happen. Then again it goes on to him, Behold, I will gather them out of all countries whither I have driven them in mine anger and my fury and in great wrath, and I'll bring them again into this place, and I will cause them to dwell safely, and they will be my people, and I'll be their God. He'll give us one heart and one way that we may fear him forever, for the good of them and of their children after them. He'll make an everlasting covenant with them that will not turn away from them, but he'll put his fear in their heart, and they'll not depart from him. And that's obviously not happened yet, but it will happen. And then in the end, in those days that the that time I will cause the branch of my righteousness to grow up unto David, and he shall execute judgment and righteousness in the land. Will dwell safely then, because Christ will be the king. Then chapter 34 goes on to where Jeremiah again talks to Zedekiah about just, go in peace and don't rebel. But he rebelled and he died. He gives a message to the people again, telling them to not forsake the Lord, follow him and stuff, not to turn from him or they're going to be taken captive. But they didn't listen. Jeremiah is in prison. He writes a scroll, and he commands what's his name here? Baruch to write in it. Jehoiakim sees it and he burns it. So he does it again. And he's in prison. They did that. They read it, yet they were not afraid nor rent their garments, neither the king nor any of his servants that heard all these words. So they didn't even hear it. They didn't even pay no attention, so he wrote it again. He's in prison. Zedekiah wanted to speak to Jeremiah, the king. He did it in secret, and Jeremiah told him, go in peace. But then he wouldn't listen, and he died. Then it goes to the fall of Jerusalem, when Babylon takes it over. They put out Zedekiah's eyes and bound him in chains to carry him to Babylon. They burnt the king's house and all the people with fire, and broke down the walls. And Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carried away captive to Babylon the remnant of the people that remained in the city. He left the poor people that didn't have nothing, and gave them vineyards and fields at the same time. They saw Jeremiah, he was locked up, but they didn't do him no harm. And basically they told him, do whatever you want to do. Go where you want to go. You can come with us, or you can go wherever. So he stays there and ministers. They set up some people. Let me see where I'm at here. Okay. He pronounces still prophesied because they sinned, that's why God did this. And now Gedaliah was the governor of Judah, which the king of Babylon made him governor. Then some people got together and conspired against him and killed him. And then the rest of them, they killed the Jewish people that was with them. So then they went to Jeremiah and was asking him, where can we go? And Jeremiah told them to stay in the land, because they was wanting to go to Egypt, and told them not to. But of course they didn't listen, and they went to Egypt. He told them, if you go to Egypt, you'll die. But they didn't listen, and then they ended up going to Egypt. And then they died by pestilence and diseases and famine. God said he'll take the remnant of Judah that have set their faces to go into the land of Egypt, to sojourn there, and they shall all be consumed and fall in the land of Egypt, for they shall even be consumed by the sword, and by the famine they shall die. So they haven't went to Egypt yet. The Babylonians hasn't. They just conquered Jerusalem so far, and then I'm sure other ones. But they just wanted to go to Egypt. They didn't want to stay in Judah. They wanted to go somewhere else, but he commanded them. So he prophesied against Egypt and told them, let not the swift flee away, nor the mighty man escape, that shall stumble and fall toward the north by the river Euphrates. The word of the Lord, basically Nebuchadnezzar took over Egypt and whipped them. Let me check my minutes. Okay, so Egypt's being whipped by Nebuchadnezzar. Philistine was taken out by Nebuchadnezzar. He prophesied against them. The Moabites was overtaken by Babylon. It's a pretty good long chapter about the Moabites. Ammon. The days of Ammon. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will cause an alarm of war to be heard in Rabbah of the Ammonites, and it shall be a desolate heap, and her daughters shall be burned with fire. Then shall Israel be heir unto them that were his heirs, saith the Lord. Against Edom, they'll be overtaken. There'll be heaps and be heathens among the people and be despised. Prophecies against Damascus, they'll fall down, and young men will fall in the streets. Against Arabia, they'll be spoiled by Babylon. Against Elam, the Babylonians will take over them. And then, of course, there's prophecy against Babylon, to where Persia overtakes them. He said, I'll punish the king of Babylon in his hand, as I've punished the king of Assyria. I'll bring Israel again to the habitation, and shall feed on Carmel and Bashan, and his soul shall be satisfied upon Mount Ephraim and Gilead. As God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, and the neighbor cities thereof, saith the Lord, so shall no man abide there, neither shall any son of man dwell therein. Comparing that to Babylon. And Babylon is still destroyed. It's just a desolate desert. Nothing's there. He'll rise up against Babylon, and against them that dwell in the midst of them, rise up against them and destroy them with a destroying wind. Thus the slain shall fall on the land of the Chaldeans, and they that thrust through in her street. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. How for her? Take balm for her pain, if so be she may be healed. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go everyone into his own country, for her judgment reaches unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the skies. Look at it now. Babylon is still like that. And then there's more. This chapter, 2 chapters are just Babylon against them. And you look at it now. Now the fate of Jerusalem, of course, basically it goes back again about Zedekiah being killed and the sons being killed and burning the house of the Lord, and burning the king's house. Then the fate of certain people, they took certain people back and killed them. But then it came to pass in the 7th and 30th year of captivity of Jehoiachin, king of Judah, because he was taken to Babylon before they set Zedekiah over king, that evil Merodach, king of Babylon, in the first year of his reign, lifted up the head of Jehoiachin, king of Judah, and brought him forth out of prison. He spake kindly to him, and set his throne above the throne of the kings that were with him in Babylon. He changed his prison garments, and did continually eat bread before him all the days of his life. And for his diet there was a continual diet given him of the king of Babylon, every day a portion, until the day of his death, all the days of his life. So now they're in captivity, and Jehoiachin, the king that was taken captive to Babylon, it was set up, and they made him like a little government official or whatever. So now Judah is desolate. No one's there, except for a couple people. Someone's in Egypt, but Babylon expanded and got big, and and that was the end of Jeremiah. Now Jeremiah was in Egypt or Palestine, so I'm not sure exactly where he ended up at, but it don't say. But he was able to go, and they was kind to him, the Babylonians were, and they let him do what he wanted. So now Israel is in captivity from the book of Jeremiah. But in our end point where we're at in the Bible now is Nehemiah rebuilt the city, Ezra the temple, and they're there, and they're under Persian rule. But in Jeremiah's time they didn't get to the Persians yet because they haven't been there. But he prophesied about the Persians because Babylon was destroyed in this prophecy. And in this book I get, people are going to hate you for what you stand for. You stand for truth, you're going to be alone. People are going to ridicule you, mock you, especially when it comes to God and His Word. About the brutish pastors and priests and false prophets That's going on today. And that's why a lot of people mock God and they mock the Bible and what he's done and stuff. Because the people that profess him has made him a joke. You know, and it shows that being a true Christian and wholly following God, you're going to be not miserable, but lonely. Because you're not going to have no friends. No true friends are in this world anyway, really. Your spouse and your parents. It's hard to find a true friend, but there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother, and that's God, and that's Christ. And it showed, and it's another thing, you know, the future. The future looks bright for some, and it looks grim for the others. But I hope Jeremiah was easy to follow along, and as I was going through it, and I narrowed it out for you and summed it up basically, and to give you a grasp of what the book of Jeremiah is about. You know, but he was prophesied. I mean, you know, prosecuted. There's at one point where he prophesied and they was mad, and the king took anger to another prophet and went and had him killed. Because he's mad of what was prophesied against him. You know, and the way the temples were polluted by all these vain people, I believe a lot of churches have been polluted like that. By the imaginations of our own hearts, rather than just humbly seeking God. You know, we seek our ideas, and just like what happened to Jerusalem and what happened to Israel and Shiloh, where God's houses were, he allowed it to be destroyed. So I don't think people should put in their heart that America can't be touched and that America can't be destroyed, because if God physically was there with them and they built the house of God for him, he led them to it to be established, yet they fell. Don't think America can't fall, because America's fate's coming, and I believe America's going to fall. I do. America's going to fall. You know, there's nothing too hard for God. He raises up nations, he brings them down low. And according to our standards that we was funded on, they're not funded on it no more. And you know what we based our beliefs and our legal system on, it's not on that no more. We're corrupt. This nation is corrupt. The government's corrupt. And you know, God has a purpose. Whether this nation falls or stays afloat, but it's going to fall. We don't know when. I don't know when. But it's in the near future, it's going to fall. And that's what I got out of Jeremiah. And I hope you look over it and read it and see what you get out of it. But just know, the main point that I got out of Jeremiah is just because his name was on the temple and in places of worship in Shiloh and in Jerusalem, they fell. So just because America has a place called church and people call Christians in it, doesn't mean it's not going to fall. So that's what I got, is don't take things for granted and listen to God, buddy, because if he's talking to you and you keep ignoring him and stuff, so desolation's going to be in your life, in your heart. Your spirit's going to be desolate. You're going to be miserable. You're not going to be happy. You're going to be a person with no form, no emotions, but depression, guilt, and misery. So, call on God while you can now. And call on him while he's near, because there's going to be a time he's not going to be near. And I hope that this was easy to understand and everything. And, you know, it's basically Jeremiah telling them they didn't listen to him. It happened. What he was telling them about them being taken over, and then they're captive, and that's it. He spoke, they didn't listen, and what he spoke of happened. And that's basically summing up Jeremiah. But I hope everyone has a good night, and that's the book of Jeremiah.